Please note that all charts here have an unknown birth time except for Ethan. So all the charts are set up as noon. We do not have an ascendant, a midheaven, or the exact location of the moon, or house cusps, except for Ethan, whose birth time is calculated in the chart because that was publicly available. Welcome to Down to Earth Astrology and Primal Girl Wellness. This is Miss Jenny, and I am your astrologer. This is just a quick note. I put this in the community tab, and I'm going to put it up here as a video because I know some people don't see the community tab, and I think this is worth considering when it comes to the Idaho 4 and the recent arrest of Bryan Kohberger. So, I'm going to read to you the post, and you can draw your own conclusions. I have a bad feeling about this. In astrology, people that we have strong connections to or who change our lives will always show strong and multiple connections between birth charts. In matters of life and death, you would definitely expect to see some kind of connection, and in matters of murder so intimately done, I mean, it was death by knife attack, not detonating explosives on a bus they were riding on with 20 other random passengers. You would definitely expect to see connections between the charts. Here's the problem. His birth date and place of birth finally appeared online, and I've just now run the charts for all the victims and Bryan Kohlberger. I'm seeing clear, definite, and multiple connections between the charts of all the victims, as you would expect to see among friends. What I'm not seeing are multiple clear and difficult aspects between their charts and Bryan's. Specifically, if Kaylee was the assumed primary target because of her wounds, we should definitely see major connections between her and Bryan's chart. But they aren't there. In fact, the one aspect between their stelliums, she has Sun, Mercury, Jupiter in Gemini together in her chart. And don't you believe for a minute that this girl wasn't good giving in game and open to exploring and experimenting with all her options as young folks do. Hot girl summer. Those Gemini planets, quincunx his stellium in Scorpio. These two, based on that alone, literally wouldn't have had more than a passing and annoying curiosity about each other, bordering on antipathy or just complete lack of interest mutually. If anything, based on the charts, he would have felt more drawn to and comfortable with Xana or Maddie. It isn't impossible that the quincunx between the stelliums of Kaylee and Bryan created a major karmic debt that had to be paid and played out in this lifetime, but honestly, when it comes to karma, and what is more karmic than murder, I personally would have expected to see more Pluto and Saturn involvement. In fact, Ethan and Xana have Saturn in the same place, and their Saturn conjuncts Kaylee's Mercury. These three would have had some strong karmic connection to each other that was specific to them as a trio. Maddie's Saturn is completely removed from this condition, or their trio of Saturn and Mercury. And didn't we already discuss the possibility that Kaylee had said something to Ethan and Xana, who joined her in mocking a possibly spurned mystery love interest, who might also be the one responsible for this quadruple murder? There's a thought. So here's the bad news about this, other than I could be wrong. One, Bryan has nothing making any real aspects to this trio's Saturn-Mercury lineup, except a supportive sextile from his Mars in Leo. This is not an aspect between folks that pushes someone to psychotic destruction, and if it is, then everything I've ever learned about astrology and people is wrong. I'm going to dig into this more and do a full chart on the synastry of all 5 of these characters and their relationships to each other, but for now, I have to tell you, I don't see a connection here, and given the lack of evidence that they have arrested Bryan with, the overwhelming need to save their reputations, the police department, and to protect the town from hemorrhaging money if they don't find a killer who's responsible for scaring the student population and the students' money right into another college next semester, Think about that for a second. This town is driven and funded by college money. And there's the bureaucracy we saw in the press conference chart. So with all of that, making a scapegoat just as convenient a conviction on circumstantial evidence as anything else, well, things aren't looking quite so simple and clean and kosher now. Worse, with everyone on the internet taking up the charge to be the first to know the most and herd mentality desire to Frankenstein this kid. Get the torches and pitchforks! He's a monster! To hell with facts that we don't have! We'll justify with everything we can find while we make a mob to destroy him! Raw! Get him! It's entirely possible that 5 innocent lives may be destroyed here before this is over, not just 4 of them. For those of you who are interested, here's what I believe is a good estimate of a rectified chart for Bryan. Now, I'm just eyeballing it, and I still need to go in and check dates to confirm a good rectified time, so take this with a grain of salt. But he is definitely a quadruple Scorpio, which is also why everyone thinks he's capable of being so evil. All that Scorpio makes you intense, frightening, and more than a little easy to project the worst fears and things onto. Pluto, you know. And with his build and the discipline and commitment it takes to make it into a PhD program when you don't come from a family with money, and listen, if you don't know, ask people in graduate school about the costs of going to graduate school. Capricorn rising will give him that lean, gaunt, haunted look. Some of us call it underfed. And it will also make it possible for him to do the dedicated work and effort necessary to even get into a PhD program. We're not talking about anything even close to the ease with which you enroll in a community college here. And sidebar, note that the focus on psychology and criminal sciences makes all that Scorpio make complete sense in this context. Scorpio/Capricorn are control freaks, hence the accusations of him being borderline OCD. And I have yet to meet someone who is passionate about criminal justice or law enforcement that wasn't judgmental, a control freak, or both before they entered the profession. It's a natural fit for those types of folks. So all of this is to say, don't jump to conclusions about this kid yet. The internet, law enforcement, and the general public is as full of idiots and lazy thinkers as you'll find in astrology and the air quotes psychics out there. Common sense and patience is your best friend right now. More soon. I need some time to look at these charts. But if I'm right and they turn out to be wrong, there will be holy hell to pay for a whole lot of folks ruining this boy's life, not just Moscow PD.